I appreciate this opportunity to chat with everybody. This is generally not my style. I much prefer an exchange, but I'll try and do my best in walking us through an example of an engagement process with everybody. And I'm just now seeing the poll results that have got to come back. So thank you for sharing that with us. I assume everybody can see that as well, so that we know where everybody is coming from in terms of fundraising. I wanted to get a sense of who was fundraising and who was not fundraising. And then, even though this is not really a fundraising presentation, it's about engagement. However, there's some folks might want to infuse some of this fundraising piece into our work, and that's always sort of in the backs of our minds, or more for some in the forefronts of our minds, as we do some of this advancement work. So thank you for responding to the poll results. I see that about 43% are in raising funds for annual gifts, 43 are not. About 14% are raising gifts for capital gifts, 29% for special gifts, and then about 60% not raising anything. And then how many of you would say that you are, describe your school's current alumni efforts? Do you have a program at your school or a designated person who's working on the alumni efforts? And about a third of the group here has somebody who's designated for that. But I want to make the point that you don't necessarily need a designated FTE to do some of this work. It's probably already being done. We just want to make sure that we're coordinating it all with everybody. So let's jump right in and go just a quick bio on who I am. I've been in the independent school world now at 6 different independent schools, 1 university for over 30 years now, working mainly in education administration. And whoops, I'm wondering if you guys can see. You know what? I'm going to stop my video. Is that better, Derek? So just want to make sure that you see those slides. And anyway, so I've been working on advancement, communications, college counseling, working with the full board, staffed the full board for the school, worked on an accreditation, worked on a strategic plan for schools, and decided to leave my school recently so that I could work in the international school realm, because that's truly my passion. And so it's something that's been pulling at me, and I'm now really trying to focus on that sector. So I've worked on most recent campaign was a $56 million campaign, capital annual fund and special projects campaign. So I have the experience most recently in advancement, fundraising, communications, and marketing. So as we talk a little bit about our senior class, I know we're talking about senior class, but truly we're talking about a mini sort of advancement of our school. And so I wanted to start sort of high level and looking at our advancement program. What does that mean for each of our schools, your schools? And it's different for every school. And so these are sorts of the questions that we want to have in the backs of our minds as we think about engaging our class of 2018. What will help advance our school? Who amongst our community can help advance our school? And how do we do this, right? So we need to align our mission, our strategic plan, gather our goals, engage all the people who can help us, especially the constituents who in this case would be the class of 2018, help communicate and market everything we're doing, and then be really intentional, understand why and what we're doing and what we want to accomplish. Don't lose focus on what we're doing, because we have such precious resources, and the most precious is time, our staff time. So we want to be very, very intentional about how we do it to accomplish what we want to accomplish. So let's look at our goals for our engagement. This is how I would start every sort of advancement program. I'd align all our mission, our strategic plan, but then I would try and define, what am I trying to do with this engagement project, or this fundraising project, or this communications project? In our case, it's engaging our class of 2018. So I'm providing some examples of some possible goals for engagement of our seniors. Sure, we're going to celebrate them. I know we do that well already for a lot of us. We feel like we celebrate them the entire year, and they are head honchos on campus and they know it, and we capitalize on that hopefully. But we want to make sure that they feel known and valued, and take advantage of that to this happy, joyful time to take advantage of their energy source to help us with everything else we're doing. And then we want to help facilitate those relationships amongst themselves and also with the school. So amongst themselves, ideally, some of them have been there for 2 years, 3 years, maybe even longer, some lifers maybe, if we are lucky to have some of those students. And so they hopefully have created their relationships. You'll find that certainly by senior year, that changes slightly. They all get sentimental about their departure, and then friendships change first year when they leave college, and then certainly beyond. But we want to ensure that we create relationships with the school. And we want to engage those, our students, their alumni, because they're going to be alumni next year. They're going to be our youngest alumni, and their parents, or even their grandparents, if we're already doing that work. We don't want to lose sight of them as well, since we want to keep our base as strong and as long lasting as we can keep that. So if you might want to perhaps introduce an alumni association to students, if you have one, or if you want to, are thinking about creating one. So then you want to define its purpose, its role, and its benefits. Want to take advantage of this opportunity to continue educating our students. And for me, I want to educate them about their sense of gratitude. They've had this wonderful time at our school, this wonderful opportunity working with other peers, and certainly their faculty and staff and their parents and everybody who has supported them along the way to get them to where they are to graduate from our school. So take that pause for them to think a little bit about that. And then certainly from our end, all these bottom bullets: optimize our marketing strategies, build pride in our school, build our database while we're at it, build our team, and to help create this culture that we're trying to create for ourselves. So start with what's easy first. Perhaps pick one of the goals. Don't feel like you have to do all of these things on this list. I'm just giving you some samples of what might work for you. And hopefully it'll jog some memories for you, and some ideas for you. So let's engage these students and really treat them as VIPs. As we all talk about our schools as small schools, strong sense of community, we market that already, but let's make sure they feel that way. They feel known, they feel important and valued and visible. Meaning that they are just as important as anybody else, and probably more so, we want them to feel that they are leaving on such a high note that they feel feel valued, and that their parents know it too. Their parents are feeling that they have invested well, and that teachers and advisors know them. Think about this: when your students receive notes from your schools, that is something really that I know when I receive a note from school to my child, that the teacher, the coach, the principal, the director, they have taken extra time to do that. And I get this. This is marketing. I get that. And yet I know that it makes my child feel known and valued. That, if every teacher could write a personalized note during the school year spontaneously, even beyond the comments that we write, it would make such a powerful statement to the student and to the families. I worked at a school where we wrote tributes at the end of the school year. We worked by committee in our admissions office, and so we wrote recommendation letters we read all applications by committee to the school, and then we wrote recommendation letters to colleges by committee. And then the person who wrote the recommendation, the primary recommendation letter, would condense that letter and write a tribute to the student at the end of the school year, so that we would present it at senior breakfast, senior dinner, and every student would be mentioned. Now, this works for a smaller school, certainly, but you might think about doing something like that. Maybe you present 5 tributes at each advisory section or at each assembly and have it be known. So, and then that note was shared with the student at the end of the year. So anyway, so let's ensure that we're making the students feel good, and we think about ways to build traditional activities that are make them feel like VIPs. And I wrote create habits. Beware, because once you create a tradition, you want to be able to sustain it. So create identities for the school. If they have themes or they have a theme for their class, you want to repeat that, and that's certainly something that you'll use if you have reunions. You'll bring that forth again. And that's something that they identify with. Our school, when they are entering as fourth graders, we gave them an animal identity, and that's their class animal that they identify with. So these are some ideas to just keep that momentum going. 100-day events, 100 days before the end of school, 100 days as you go into the first 100 days of senior year, anything to celebrate the seniors. Come up with ideas where you're recognizing and making them known. Have a world map and put pins where they're from or where they're going to college. So you get the sense of what I'm trying to do, creating a community. And then I wrote myself a note, make sure if you're going to pronounce and announce names during graduation that you announce them properly, especially in our international schools. We want to make sure that we get it correct. We are culturally sensitive. We want to get all of that correct. So the other thing that we were able to engage others in helping us with making students feel good is parents associations. How many of us have parents associations where we're trying to find work for them, or they have other work that they've gone off the tracks? Well, this is a great way to engage our students. Our parents of my daughter's class, occasionally during finals week, they put little treats in their mailboxes. They write little notes, sort of I love you, sort of sweet notes that just remind them of that we are aware of what they're going through during their days at school. So like I said, let's optimize on the students, their knowledge, their energy, their connections, their stature in school being sort of, you know, the big dogs on campus now, the big fish. Let's make sure that we try and tie them to other people and strengthen their ties to the school. Try and identify roles, potential roles for them that they could keep when they leave the school so that they are still tied to the school. Generally, we choose, you know, students who are already in those leadership positions, but I would suggest that we identify students who belong to different cliques or different friendship groups so that we have different representations amongst our leaders when they graduate from school. Identify them now and start talking to them about what they possibly could be doing with the school. So again, we're thinking long-term about their connection to the school now, how they feel now, but also thinking forward next year, six months from now, and then certainly when they're in school, the first half year, when we want them back for the holidays, and when we are inviting them back to speak to our seniors or juniors, we want to ensure that we get the maximum return of student visits. So find ways to engage them with that and find ways so that they feel accountable to those sorts of activities. And certainly explain why we want this, why the school is seen as a permanent second home. Their parents, you know, if they're transient families, they're going to be moving. But this school is permanent. This is a school that they will identify with. They will have a lifetime network of friends, of a network of mentorships, internships, jobs that will be available to them. So try and explain that so that they understand what the potentials are for them long term. So let's ensure that we focus on the experience. And I like to use the word experience as opposed to events, because I want to make sure that the experience is what we are leaving the students with. There's so many ways that we can engage students, certainly with events, as you can see, that I've listed. So, you know, I don't even have to list them for us, because very often when a board member says, let's create an advancement program, they always start with the event side. And events are hard to conduct long-term, because they are time-intensive, people labor-intensive, and so want to make sure that the events are meaningful and that they are meeting the purpose of what we need for our main goals. So I talk about the experience because, as I mentioned earlier with my examples with the tributes, we're sending photos of students after graduation. I just went to a student sports banquet, and this was such a nice touch. They took photos of the students, just they don't even need to be professional photos, and then they framed them and engraved the student's name and the sport and year with this for the students who won the MVP and the coaches awards. And so these are sort of nice tributes, experiences that last, that are reminders to the student, that are semi-permanent if they do display that photo. And as I mentioned, we want to take the time to educate the students about giving back to the school. And how do we give back? We can give back in lots of ways. Time, talent, and treasure, right? Lots of ways to volunteer for the school. So let's try and identify other ways that we could use this, but I'm going to put a cautionary asterisk here, because volunteer management, again, is very time and labor intensive. So, and we want to make sure that, especially with this next generation, this generation of students and our younger generations, they want to make sure that they are doing something that is meaningful, that's impactful, and they don't want these long meetings. They want to just come in, get their jobs done, and get out. So we want to make sure that we have very concrete, short, discrete tasks for our volunteers. Talents, we want to ensure that we value our students for not only for their time, but their talent. And certainly we don't want to come across that we're just asking folks for money and philanthropy, but creative way might be the asking them for a donation to the annual fund. If you have an annual fund, for those who responded yes, the 40% or so, the annual fund, annual giving program is a great way to start educating the outgoing senior class. Perhaps you want to introduce annual giving and have them give $20.18 for their first year, and maybe even think about having them pledge out long-term 5 years in advance, and then again explain the reasons. Here's just an example of fun swag that we gave from the Dana Hall School to our seniors. It was a water bottle that we filled with all these items, and we explained what the items are for. So there was a little note with the items tied to with a ribbon to the water bottle, and we used the opportunity to educate a little bit about staying in touch and certainly giving back to our communities, and then giving back to the school. So as we're doing all this work, let's take advantage of it and gather information. Gather information to build our database, certainly. And if you have one, great. Gather more information. Gather information that will build our database, but also think about some of the ways that you might want to market stories or use quotes. And I wrote the very bottom bullet point: make your exit surveys mandatory. We would actually have these exit surveys at the end of our senior breakfast and not give them their little gift baggies until we received an exit survey back. When we asked some of the questions that we wanted to help with marketing, but also help with our database and help inform us with what we're doing programmatically. So think about what you need and then start creating that exit survey. Perhaps other people within your school need information and you want to put that in. So perhaps your college counseling office wants to know how they did with their process, if you know, and so want to make the survey just long enough to keep their attention, and that the responses are meaningful, but not too long, so that you don't get enough true information that you really need. So talk about engaging our entire school community to help with these efforts, because this is truly a group effort. Communications is not a single person's job. Engagement's not a single person's job. So think about ways to engage all these people who work with our seniors, work with our students, and who will have long-term relationships with the students. Certainly the faculty and staff are the go-to folks with the students. They write to faculty and staff, and so we want to ensure that faculty and staff, those who get these correspondences, understand to share that information back with the person who's in charge of gathering the information about what we do. Perhaps it's your advancement, alumni relations, communications department, whoever's in charge with that. And take full advantage of this marketing opportunity. Again, be intentional. Figure out what we want to say, right? What's our add value of our school? It's certainly very often it's the college list, the awards, the opportunities that students have had for leadership opportunities, because we tend to be smaller than the public school options. We are schools that give students opportunities to learn how to read and write analytically. So how do we gather some of those quotes to show that, or gather their stories or essays to show that? And then we want to make sure that we create the opportunities of the marketing opportunities to make it easy when we blast it out, so that families can then easily forward it on to other folks and use it as a marketing opportunity. Just expand that and augment that marketing for all of us. So, and so how do we start? If we have somebody who's accountable, great. But again, I want to make sure that we have one person who's accountable, but we really need to create a team to help back this person's job up. And make sure that we're all thinking this on the same lines of engagement, communications, and thinking about advancing our school. Train those who don't have the training, and have everybody think like a connector, a community builder, or marketer. And then think about what's your low-hanging fruit. What's the easiest things to do now? What would make a good story? And don't think about adding more. We have plenty to do, especially now at this time of the school year. We're on the down slide now, and we're just running fast. So let's make sure that we are making this easy on ourselves. And then make sure that we define how would we define our successes, and how would we define our outcomes? What do we really want to get out of this? If it's engagement, how do we define that? Perhaps we say we want our students to come. This year we had 10 students come back during the winter break, and next year we would like to increase that to 12 or 15. Perhaps we want students to come back as speakers and be very intentional about that. We want a speaker who's a young alumni speaker, or a young alumni representative who can help guide an advisory board of some sort. So think about ways of what would be good potential benchmarks, and that would be manageable and accomplishable for the person who is managing it. And think about some of the challenges. You might be asking, well, we have challenges. We have limited resource. We don't have the time and the finances to do even one of these ideas. Well, can we piggyback on what's already been done? Can we assess what's been done and just tweak it a little bit to tighten it up and to really be intentional about what we want to accomplish with our students with that? And then our database, start. If we can find volunteers to help us gather some of the database. We have yearbooks that have some of this, so that's another resource. Finding somebody who works in the yearbooks, using their photos that they already have. That's another great connect that we have. And then getting the training that we need for the staff. The last point that I have, expectations. Ensure that your expectations are aligned. If this is something that your board or the head of school, your superintendent is asking you to do, make sure the expectations are aligned and everybody understands how much time and effort is required of the person in charge of these efforts, because it is very, very time consuming. Someone who's done it, I want to make sure that if your board doesn't understand, you want to get someone in there to explain it to them and to explain it to the head of school. So I'll put a quick plug on the alumni relations piece. If you're not doing it, you should start thinking a little bit about some of this work. I mean, what we've talked about here with our class of 2018, it truly is a precursor to an alumni relations work, right? Our students are great ambassadors, our parents of these students. They are what help us. The word of mouth is the biggest marketing tool for us. So we want to make sure that we take full advantage of having our students who have shown what the success stories are. They truly are our success stories. We want to make sure that we engage them in everything that we do. So our time is about up. I'm going to just put us up on our questions, see if there's anything that we want to share as a group with one another, or if people have any questions. So I'll pause here.
Great, thank you, Jenny. At the moment, we don't have any questions from the chat, but if anybody would like to take a second, and if you have a question about anything that Jenny mentioned about engaging with the 2018 class, please go ahead and write that in the chat now, and I can make sure that that gets asked for you. Or if you want to unmute your mic, you're more than welcome to ask those questions yourself.
Or I will put my contact information up for all of us. And so if you have questions afterwards and you want to ask them one-on-one, or if you want to continue brainstorming, feel free to reach me via my email, Skype, LinkedIn. I'm based in Washington, D.C. That's my cell number. So feel free to contact me if I can be helpful to answering any questions or just brainstorming with you. I'm happy to do that.
And finally, a few things that AAIE and Jenny are trying to do to help schools organize with their marketing and missions advancement and communication is that we do have an institute this summer, a gathering for 4 days of professionals from international schools to go through a lot of different workshops with Jenny and Sylvia Tasama, and then also sharing with each other. And there's more information on our website for that. And then recently, last week, we launched MACA.net, so M-A-C-A, which allows you to communicate with each other. So if you have questions or research or best practice that you'd like to share or questions that you have, MACA.net is a place to do that. If you have questions about that, please get in touch with me, Derek, at AAIE.org, or with Jenny, and either one of us can help get you set up. That's a group email listserv so that you are in communication with each other. So really appreciate it. Thank you, Jenny, for your time this morning.
Thank you all for joining.
Great. And we look forward to seeing everybody in the next few years, if not this summer. We do have, great. So we do have a question just about the gift bottle that you gave your seniors, Jenny.
Yes.
And the question is, could they have a listing of that? So we could put that when we archive. Yeah, when we archive this webinar on our webinar page at AAIE, Jenny can give us that list. Well, we can put that out there for you. That's okay, right, Jenny?
Yes. Well, I'm going to credit it to Dana Hall School, so okay. I can let me just double check with them. They're okay with us sharing that with everybody, but I can certainly change it. If they are not, I can change it so you have a good sense of what the different types of items are. I don't know if you see it on the screen now.
Yes, we see.
So you can see that it's all different kinds of candies, and you certainly could find candies or goodies that are your local treats too. And play was a word play with Snickers to keep you laughing, right? So and our class or school symbols were stars and moons. So we try to use those in our little ribbons and what or paper or confetti in the bottles.
Great, thank you, Jenny. And those are all the questions. We have a couple of people who want to join MACA.net, so I really appreciate that. And we'll see you in the future. Thank you all.
Great, thank you.